Hi, everyone. It's Rose Griffin from ABA Speech. I wanted to come on live today to talk all about joint attention and to help your students who are having trouble engaging start to engage. So, I'm going to try to come on live here. I'm using a new technology, so if you can't hear me, let me know. So, today's a little bit of a trial run. Today I wanted to talk all about joint attention. So, whether you're joining me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, I am happy that you are here. So, I wanted to go over exactly what joint attention is, how we can use it for our students. And if you have students who are not yet speaking, who are hard to engage, I wanted to give you some tips and strategies on how to get started. I will never forget, I worked with a client. It was a long time ago now. It was almost 20 years ago, and his name was Hank. It was a client who I would have the best laid plans for our speech therapy sessions. And he would let me know right away that he did not like the activity that I had planned. And so I really struggled with how to reach this student. And this went on for a couple weeks, and I tried all the different things that I had learned in graduate school. And I really was not getting anywhere with Hank. And so I went to my supervisor and I said, I am having such a hard time with this student. Can you please help me? And she looked at me and said, Rose, I will help you. This is my area of expertise. I'm going to share some podcasts with you. I am going to come and shadow you in some of your sessions. No, she didn't say any of those things. She just said, Rose, you are doing a great job. And you have to just keep with it. And I left that meeting with so many more questions than I had answers. And so, what I did is I really dug deep into the research. So, I was working at that time at the Cleveland Clinic, and they have an autism school. And I had a lot of students who really would not get engaged in therapy, did not have a way to communicate with the world, and were really struggling to make progress. And so I started working on joint attention. So, joint attention, if you haven't heard of that concept, and there is a more clinical definition, but I like to keep things pretty simplistic. So, because I have a lot of parents that tune in and professionals, is a shared activity. So, I'm doing something with you, we're doing something together. And that is what joint attention is. So, how can we embed work on joint attention into our therapy sessions? That is a really great question, and one that I get asked often. So, I am going to come on live more and talk about that a bit. Today, I want to talk about joint attention in more of a general sense. And so, joint attention is that shared activity. And the way that I like to think about it, because the way my brain works, being both a speech therapist and a BCBA, is really systematic. So, I like to think about joint attention as a foundational skill for more advanced communication. It's going to help your students or your little ones find their voice. If you're just joining us, we're talking all about joint attention. And the way that we can work on that is by using books, by using music, and by using play. And so today, what I wanted to talk about are those things in a general sense. So if you're using books with your learners, one of my favorite books is Pete the Cat. In subsequent lives, I will talk more about very specific books that I'm using, but I really like to use Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat is a great book, but whatever book that you're using, things you want to think about are use a very energetic voice. So this is something to be excited about. If that is not exactly your personality, that's okay. Don't force it, but use an energetic voice. The second thing to think about is to use your own voice. Oftentimes, we may default to YouTube or Epic Books, and we may show students or our own kids a book being read to them. And what we really want to think about with this shared activity is using our own voice. And so we want to use an energetic voice. We want to use our own voice. And the other thing to think about now, if you're using a book like Pete the Cat, where a lot of people know the words, you probably want to read this word for word. But if you're reading a book that you've never seen before, you can paraphrase. You don't have to use every single word that's in the book. I always joked when I put my kids to bed, I would read a book a certain way. I would simplify the text. And that's something that we need to do for our own kids, for our autistic learners. We want to keep them engaged. We want it to be motivating. And so you can do that. No, there's nothing said that you have to read every book word for word. So I'm just going to give you an example of how I might use this in therapy if I'm working on joint attention. So I might grab the book and I might say, we're going to read a book today. This is going to be so exciting. And sometimes you can have your child pick the book. Sometimes you just want to have a book ready if that's too overwhelming. And then you would say, okay, we're going to read Pete the Cat today. Oh, I'm not going to read the whole thing, 2 pages. Oh no, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Red. And you want to make it exciting. Now, if your child or your student is with you for 30 seconds and then they leave the teaching area and they come back, just log how long they were with you during that time. We don't want this to be an unhappy experience. We don't want to say things like, okay, it's time for work. Come sit down. We're reading now. We don't want to do those types of things. So those are some general tips about using books in therapy. If you're joining us, we're talking all about joint attention today. So we can use books. We can use our own voice. We can be energetic and we can paraphrase. We don't have to read word for word. Another way that we can work on joint attention is by using music. There are so many amazing songs out there that you can use. And if you're tuning in, I just back in the day assumed that everybody knew words to songs like The Wheels on the Bus or Old MacDonald, but that's not always the case. So if you're tuning in today from LinkedIn and maybe you have an autistic child or a child who has a speech delay at home, you can always look these words up for these simple songs on YouTube, or you can look them up on Google. So the one I want to talk about today, just in a general sense, is The Wheels on the Bus. The Wheels on the Bus is a really nice song because now I made this visual about 20 years ago. I do have a Teachers Pay Teachers store and I have a early intervention song product that is for sale. That's a lot prettier than this, my designer made. But what's nice about Wheels on the Bus is you can print something like this if you have laminate and all the things. Now, if you don't, Wheels on the Bus is great because there's motions. There are motions that go with Wheels on the Bus. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. So for Wheels on the Bus, I like that one. I'm not going to do all of it for you, but what happens is when you say the wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, what's so cool is if your child or client is not yet speaking, they can still have a way to participate. So there's a whole continuum of ways that people can participate in an activity like Wheels on the Bus. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about joint attention. And so with the Wheels on the Bus, a really cool foundational skill is joint attention, this idea of a shared activity. We're doing it together. It's so fun. If your child does one of them and then gets up and leaves and then comes back, that's okay. We're going to have repeated exposure to these different songs. So Wheels on the Bus is great because you're working on joint attention, which we know is a great foundational skill, a shared activity with your child or client. But the other thing that's great is you can also work on imitation. And imitation and joint attention are foundational skills to help our students find their voice and to help our students go beyond basic communication skills. So this is how we get started. Okay, so we talked about using books to work on joint attention. We talked about using music to work on joint attention. And the last area that I love to share about is play. So play is so very important. That's how our students learn. That's how kids learn. And this is not about teaching our child to play the correct way with toys. That is not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about play in that way. What we're talking about is play and doing an activity that I can do either as a parent or professional. I do have 3 kids of my own too, as with my own kids or with my clients, and we're doing it together and it's a fun activity. And so the one that I wanted to share about today is modified Simon Says. So Simon Says is a really fun game. You don't need anything. You just need what you have here. And so it's always Simon Says. This is the way that we modify it. So I'm going to try to go live here more on Instagram. I'm going live on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. And on Fridays, I'm going to come live here in the morning. I'm going to try to do it a little bit earlier next week. And so I want to share very specific ways that you can embed work on these skills into your own home life or into your own therapy or clinic as well. So the play activity I want to talk about today, usually the things I'm going to share might be modified. Modified meaning that we're tweaking, we're modifying so that our students are having fun, so that it's not hard, because communication is already hard for the students that I talk about over at ABA Speech. So Modified Simon Says. Modified Simon Says is super, super fun. I actually just played it last night. I see a handful of clients still for teletherapy, just a handful of clients. I'm kind of like not seeing as many clients one-on-one anymore because I have other things to work on. But what we do is it's always Simon Says. So it might look like this. Okay, we're going to play Simon Says today. Simon says, clap your hands. Simon says, pat your head. Simon says, windmill arms. And you go on like that. What's great about Simon Says is we're working on joint attention. I do something, you do something, we're doing it together. That is so important for working on social engagement for our autistic learners. The other thing that's really cool is you're also working on imitation. I do this, you do this. And that is another great foundational skill. Joint attention, imitation. The other thing that's really cool is if your student is talking and they're verbalizing or using an AAC device, augmentative communication device, is that they then can become Simon and they can tell you what actions to do. So I had a student yesterday that is verbalizing, and I could tell that he wanted to be Simon. He was saying a couple things, and I said, do you want to be Simon? And he said, yeah. And so he started demonstrating some things for us to do, him and there was a tech there, it was through teletherapy, and it was so fun. It was such a fun experience. So make sure that you keep a lookout, because I'm going to be going live more. I want to connect more with you here on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'm putting YouTube shorts up every single day and hope to be soon adding longer videos. So that's on my to-do list. And also I'm going live on Instagrams at 8 p.m. Eastern, ABA Speech by Rose. I want to share this information with you, whether you're in the trenches working as a speech therapist, a BCBA, an RBT, a teacher, or you have your own child at home who either has speech delays or who has autism. These tips and strategies are going to help you connect with your child, connect with your client, and build a foundation for communication skills. If you want to learn more, make sure that you reach me at abaspeech.org and listen to the Autism Outreach podcast. A new episode drops every single Tuesday. And this past week, we talked all about joint attention, specifically for toddlers. So make sure that you tune in. Until next time, remember to keep things fun and functional.